Welcome to Image the Icons, a roundtable, open agenda conversation with the women significant to Image Media's business story and the stories of the Image PwC Businesswoman of the Year Awards. In 2026, we're celebrating our 50th birthday and taking a moment to pause and look at the modern world and the way women operate within it. Today, we're with some whose drive, talent and leadership have shaped Ireland's business landscape. Everything is open for conversation, nothing is off the table, so let's get into it. So thank you so much, ladies, icons, for being with us today. I think maybe just by way of introductions, can I ask each of you maybe to tell us a little bit about you and a synopsis of your career? And maybe Aimee, you might kick off.
I thought you might come. Yeah, so excited to be here with all you guys and icons, as you say, Melanie, and one yourself. So I am Aimee. I am CEO and founder of Sculpted by Aimee. So we are a beauty brand. We venture into cosmetics and skincare. We launched 8 years ago. We're omnichannel. We're mainly available across the UK and Ireland. We're a team of over 120 people. We are still privately owned and self-funded. We absolutely champion complexion, and ultimately we strive to simplify beauty, make it easy, and most importantly, make our community feel amazing.
Fantastic. Emma?
I'm Emma Maye. I am the chairperson now of Core Building Providers, and I'm the CEO of Ardale, which is a home building company. I'm a proud dyslexic CEO. We buy and sell businesses, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. Buy and sell businesses. I'm quite involved with mentoring and stuff like that as well. But I'm part of a very male-dominated industry, so I do find that very fascinating as well.
I'm sure that's something we're going to be going more into. Yeah. Breege.
Well, more than 80 years ago, I was born in a small place in rural Ireland on the Burn. Home was a farm. So, before going to school, I milked my 19 goats. I went with the sods of turf under my arm and I trekked 2 miles over the fields. I entered the world of work in the 1960s. Spent 17 years in hospitality, and 3 years of that was in Switzerland and Germany. Then I joined Primark, Penny's Primark, in the late 1970s and had an absolutely blissful career for almost 40 years, working in the UK, but principally in Europe and in the US. I think during my time, I always wanted to go to university. It wasn't economically possible at the start, but I did have the ambition to do so, and I achieved that. But also during my working life, both in hospitality and Primark, I was a member of a number of boards appointed by the government to state boards, also on PLCs. And today I chair a number of boards. I sit as independent member on others. And for voluntary work, Kylemore Abbey, I spend a fair bit on the Kylemore Trust Board there. And I've just finished a 3-year term at Hillsborough Castle.
Oh, congratulations. Lorna, hard act to follow, but...
Can you skip me, please?
But of all people, I'm glad it's you.
So Lorna Conn, CEO of CPL. CPL is a large talent solutions company. So we have about 14,000 staff. About 12,000 of that staff is in Ireland. So we're one of the largest employers in Ireland and the conduit through which many people find meaningful and purposeful work. I'm also an INED on Board Nimona and Glenveigh Properties PLC, and I'm on the advisory boards of the 30% Club and Michael Smurfit Business School, and I am absolutely passionate about Ireland as a place to live and to work, and really proud to be heading up an Indigenous, homegrown, quintessentially Irish business in CPL.
Brilliant, thank you. And Eva?
Hi, I'm Eva Pau. I'm Managing Director of Asia Market. It's Ireland's largest importer, distributor and retailer of Asian food products. I'm also a TV chef and presenter of Eva Pau's Asian Kitchen on RT1. It's literally a dream come true, and so it feels a bit surreal to be actually saying it out loud. So my parents moved to Dublin in 1981 when I was only 1 month old, and they set up the Asia market. So that was set up when they saw a gap in the market for Asian food ingredients. So I graduated from Trinity College Dublin, studying IT, and then I moved to Hong Kong, where I stayed for 8 years working as a private banker before coming back home to Dublin and to work in the family business. So since then, I've been focusing on growing Asia market as a business, developing the brand, and then, you know, investing a lot in kind of IT and trying to modernize the company.
So many people, I mean, if we look at the ladies around the table today, you know, there are business founders, there are family business growers and developers, there are people that work in the professions in the corporate sector, and there are people like yourself, Breege, with a 40, 50-year career portfolio under your belt. Is now the best time for women in business, or is there so much noise that it's almost
I think it's a very
suffocating?
good time. And, you know, that takes me back to the early 70s when we had the marriage bar until 1973, when women were not allowed to work after being married, those in the civil service and many of those in the professions. Now, after that time, women burst on to the scene. And that women kept growing. Today, I think women in business, they've had the opportunity to be educated. I mean, lots of opportunities. They've had the opportunity to go into professions that were male-oriented, whether that was the finance, the technical, the construction. We have flexibility, we have hybrid working, we have reasonable childcare, but of course, to be much improved. For women, I think there are many women on CEOs, many women on boards, not enough women in politics, which I would very much like to see, as they have a particular influence. And I think, yes, of course, we do have the glass ceiling, we do have unconscious bias, but if it's say to the glass ceiling, you know, for the women or the woman who rise above that, you know, it gets thinner. And for the man who supports that woman, it shatters. And I do think we have a lot of wonderful men who are supporting women in business because they understand their value and their true worth.
Yeah. Actually, the glass ceiling is something, Emma, I'd say you've never seen, even though you are working in a very man's world.
Yeah, especially kind of in the property area. There's very few women at the top, to be totally honest. I'm one of the only female owners of building providers in Ireland, and there's very few property developers that are female too. So it is difficult. I do think it's improving hugely, especially with mentorship and stuff like that as well, and especially in a lot of the construction companies. You can see there's a lot more kind of board level coming in, which is helping. But I would love to be seeing much more property developers out there for sure.
I think what's interesting here is we have three ladies who have, who are the female leaders of their businesses. So they may not see a patriarchy in business or a glass ceiling or an unconscious bias as much as maybe out there in the real world. But as somebody with your perspective, where you're working with recruitment, what is the real situation?
Yeah, and you know, that's a really interesting observation, because perhaps, you know, that could be an example of where one might not be as aware of kind of the patriarchy and the kind of the man-led kind of environment, because you've grown up in something that's a bit more within your control. And I think certainly from my perspective in CPL, I was a female to female successor. So certainly my entire experience within CPL has been one where I've never felt a ceiling per se, because I've been able to achieve all my kind of dreams and aspirations. But more broadly, in terms of the business environment, you know, what we see is great progression to a certain level, and then the burden of caregiving, the burden of inflexibility, societal weight on women to be that default caregiver, people not having equality at home from the get-go, means that the pressures on women seem to be disproportionate to those of men. And what we have seen, and certainly I've found, even particularly in my own friend group, is people slowly but surely falling away at a certain point in their career. And I think it takes a lot of strength and conviction and ambition actually to make it to the top in this world. and much less so for men, to be quite honest with you, because the path is more straightforward for them.
Actually, yes, they get the direct route and we get the round the houses route. That's a very, very interesting point. And I suppose it's the converse side of, while there are loads of opportunities for women in business these days, a lot of the traditional roles still hang around us.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I'm a real big believer that flexibility is not the sole preserve of the woman, because you're automatically assuming that default role. And I always encourage particularly younger business women, get their house in order from the get-go. Equality starts at home. And from myself personally, I would never be where I am today and have 3 children, which is the most important part of my life, and have the career that I have without my husband at home. And that's because we've gotten the equality right. And I think sometimes people just need to be encouraged to have these really honest conversations so they don't become that person whose career has to sacrifice because there's just too much pressure on the family front.
You would have got a great example from your parents and equality in the workplace.
Exactly, because my mum and dad kind of worked so hard to kind of build the business, but also like I now work in the business with my husband as well. So
do I. Oh, really? Won't ask who the real boss is.
Always you, always you.
But I think, like you said, you know, I think it is that support that you have from the house that, you know, in the workplace, you need that support as well. And without my husband's support, I wouldn't also be able to work the way I can, you know.
Melanie, could I come back to something on the construction? I chair a construction company, and the number of women on the board exceed the men.
Oh,
and that's because of their contribution.
gosh, that's fantastic.
And actually, my parents work together as well. So, like, I've seen that, and my husband's parents work together as well. So, I've a learned experience, which is mad. But I love being in a female and a male kind of orientated business because I'm totally underestimated all the time. So, I love that energy that brings off. Because I am always underestimated.
And are there many female kind of in your business working? Like
there is, yeah. Like in the building providers, a ratio of females was only 1% when we took over the business, and now we're at, I think it's 28%. So we're trying to improve it all the time, especially as a female CEO at the top. Like that's one thing I really want to do. So back to your question, I think it is easier for women now in the workplace because there's a lot more accessibility to shared childcare and all those kind of things. But also as well, I was talking to Breege before about it, topics like kind of menopause, miscarriage, all those things that happen to females through their life. I bring it up, it's part of our board meetings now. There's a lot of males at the board meetings too, but it's a topic of conversation now, which I think is really important too.
And it's important to have the conversation because it brings it, you know, up to the fore, and I think it means that people can address it and people can move on from it.
Absolutely, but also as well, it normalises it too. And we find in the company now, if someone has a female appointment, they can now say it instead of saying they're going to the dentist. And look, as women, all of us, we go through so much in life. There's so many different cycles as we age.
Quite literally.
That I think it's really important that you're supported from a company level. So that's a big important thing for me.
Actually, Aimee, you were saying you've
124.
124. What percentage are female?
I always laugh at this because people talk about, you know, trying to get to an equality figure within the business, and I think we're completely over indexed on the one way versus the other. We have a 97% female workforce.
Wow.
Yeah. Ladies, loud and proud.
So I'm sure it wasn't the first thing you were thinking about when you were formulating sculpted products in the early days, but you obviously have to put in an awful lot of initiatives for your female-led workforce.
Yeah. And I think, listen, like as we grow, we're very proud to have so many females. I've come up and grown up in a female dominant world, single mom, you know, all girls school, etc. So I love the men in my life as well, but it's actually kind of all I've known in the beauty industry. It's also funny when people kind of position a conversation to me around that male-female dynamic and being quite a male-dominant world, whereas I have a completely different experience and always have had. So I'm nearly like, why would we question ourselves? Sure, we're at the table, we're this, we're that, which is quite lovely. But I think in work, like the balance is always something that's on our mind. But yes, you have to put female issues, life stages, whatever it is we're going to go through at the fore of kind of what are the benefits or what are the kind of success factors of working with a startup like ourselves, and how can we be competitive versus bigger corporates. And that can take such a different view. So just some of the points already on the maternal side of things, it can be the flexibility because the trust is there, the job is going to get done. I think also for a business kind of our age coming out of the COVID times as well, that flexibility is like inbuilt now into the centre of what we do. And also because we have e-com in store, we've got 30% of our workforce across the UK, majority here. You know, there's just flexibility in every regard. And I think there's no hiding in a startup. So it's obvious if you're not getting the work done. So it's really easy to create that trust then as well.
Breege, were you going to add something there? Or can I ask you, you know, as somebody who's worked with so many new territories with Primark, opening them and steering them over the years, how do you think Ireland performs in relation to our European and our global relations?
I think Ireland is excellent in terms of, you know, if I think of the business in the UK, it was built on the back of Irish people. And that was in the 70s and the 80s. There weren't many jobs in Ireland, so young people in the pennies business had the opportunity to go to the UK and more later to go to Europe and to America. Meanwhile, jobs were created at home. I have seen, if I take Spain as an example, that many people have moved with their families to Spain. They love the children are hugely valued in Spain. The education system is extremely good. Now, there are cultural differences. I recall when we went into Spain first, we couldn't understand why we were selling slippers. We couldn't keep them in stock, you know, all day, every day. And it was, of course, because the marble floors. Going into Holland in the same way, didn't know why the bags over the shoulders were selling, and because of the bicycles. So there are that, you know, the cultural intelligence, there are those differences. So you must, you know, and also building a business outside Ireland, like in France, it's a French business. In Spain, it's a Spanish business, that it is not an Irish business. But it's to respect and value the differences, understand the market thoroughly. And of course, what I have always felt really important is to learn the language. And that was a high priority for me in terms of going into Europe, that I was able to communicate, able to speak the language. And it was about, you know, the dignity and respect for others. But very, very exciting. Europe and America, huge input from Ireland. And at the same time, in latter years, a huge input from the UK. And here were people who were the DNA of the business. They understand the product. They understand their respected people. They got places they wouldn't have gone in the normal course of events, where promotional opportunities were coming fast.
Brilliant, brilliant. Lorna, can I ask how we perceived, you know, overseas? How are our jobs perceived? Are we, you know, a destination people want to come and work in?
Yeah, I think we're perceived as a highly educated workforce, quite innovative. We're English speaking. We're a very liberal, progressive society. We're a democracy. In the main, we're a safe place to live. Like, honestly, so many times I just feel so extraordinarily blessed to have been born in Ireland, particularly as a woman, where you think, where else you might have ended up in the world. You know, Ireland is such a beautiful place to live. We're not perfect, but we're a very attractive society and country for candidates coming in to get really meaningful work. We've so many multinationals, so many medium-sized or thriving SME sector, like lots of opportunities for individuals to come over to Ireland and gain meaningful work. Clearly, we've infrastructural deficits, and that's probably the one blocker for us as a country to really channel our own destiny. But I think we've got an ambitious government who is putting money and meaning behind trying to overcome these deficits and keep that attractiveness high companies to invest, but also candidates to come and relocate their families and commit their working lives to Ireland.
Can I ask you, Lorna, you've been with CPL for a long time, but you worked your way up and into the boots of a very iconic woman, Anne Herity, who is one of our Lifetime Achievement recipients along with Breege. Can you tell us a little bit maybe about the journey from when you went into CPL to how you managed to take over the reins?
Yeah, sure. And I often liken it to, following in the footsteps of like Alex Ferguson. Do you know what I mean? A very hard path to follow. But so I joined 8 years ago as CFO, and at that time my biggest aspiration was to be, I was a chartered accountant by profession, to be a CFO of a listed company. And then I just really fell in love with CPL. Like I found this company and this culture where I could thrive in a professional setting, and started to imagine myself actually leading the organisation. And it was a very organic, natural succession path. And myself and Anne will be quite similar in a lot of ways in terms of our leadership style. Tough when we need to be, but very compassionate, and we kind of lead with our heart. So from a people perspective, the succession from Anne to me was actually very smooth, because there wasn't that huge shift in terms of leadership style. And that's probably one of the key pieces of advice I'd give to anybody in a professional setting, particularly women, where often the burden, as I've mentioned before, kind of perhaps falls disproportionately on their shoulders. Find an organisation where you can thrive. And really there is, in my mind, there's no ceiling when you're in an organisation that allows you to flourish and fulfill your full kind of career aspirations. And certainly for CPL, it was just one of those organisations where I just felt so right. I'll always remember the first day I started, and I could almost feel the magic in the walls. That's how strong our culture is within CPL. And I know for me that's the kind of culture that I thrive in. I've worked in other organisations where I've been kind of a shell of myself by comparison. So it's fascinating to be in an organisation that draws the very best from you. And
well, I think when something works, it feels good and you can just get on with it. And Aimee, I'm thinking just, hearing Lorna speak there, you were a product innovator. You were somebody who is into beauty products and a makeup artist. You've since become a manager of a business growth person, a developer, an icon within your industry. They're two very different roles. One is hands-on and creative, and the other one is leadership and management. How do you juggle those two Aimees day to day?
I often, the most common thing I think I would say to someone is, when you start out in a business, like you've mentioned, you have a product idea or a service idea. And so the creative parts of your brain are buzzing, and it's like, that's what I want to do. For the majority of people who get into it, no one teaches you how to actually transition to become a HR leader then over your 20s, because you are growing a team of, when it was just you, to over this amount of people, and dealing with humans who are complex, amazing, but complex. And
want some of your time, a lot of.
Yeah, they want your time, they want your energy. And sometimes they're double your age, sometimes they're half your age. So you're also balancing that as well. I think what I have come to realise is, me personally, I actually like massaging both parts of my brain. So I really like being in the CEO role, where it's actually across every kind of department of the business. And so you're getting a little sprinkle of each, and you're trying to support and guide each. But equally, if I don't have any in the lab with product or in the campaign creative with marketing, I'm not satisfying the parts of my brain that I really enjoy working on. So we go out to South Korea to our lab twice a year. And last April when we were going, I felt this insane guilt of oh my God, I'm out of the business for a week and there's all of these things on. Really, can I do it? Can I not? And I was kind of berating myself as to whether I can go. And then on day 3 over there, although it's exhausting because you're doing 14-hour days, it's amazing, and it's my favorite part, that I had this really strong epiphany of, you actually have to continue to do this, because it's important that you keep up, outside of just your close connection with product, because product is the heart of the business. It's important that you keep up the areas that serve you as an individual as well as a leader. Because let's be honest, like when you're CEO, you don't love every single part. I don't thrive going into P&L meeting, you know, sitting with finance, but you have to do it. No offense, finance. So yeah, I've kind of come to that realization. I actually feel like I've had a lot of kind of really kind of internal self-thoughts the last 2 or 3 years as the business has grown, and in turn I've also grown with it. I think you really reflect, I'm sure we've all had these stages and probably continue to do at different stages of life, but how you are your best self in work.
So one part of you pulls the other part with it. Yeah. I mean, this is obviously something that's ringing true for you at the moment, Eva, because you are exercising many parts of your brain simultaneously. You're running a business and you're now a TV presenter and chef.
Yeah, but the thing is that I feel like it all kind of comes together because it's my mission to, and it's always been my mission since I joined the company to kind of grow the Asian food culture in Ireland. So I feel incredibly lucky to like be running the business, but then have the time to, in my mind, it's time off to do the show, to kind of exercise and be able to kind of present. And what I find is like, you know, it's like I'm presenting, but it's only like a small part of the whole team. Like there's a whole group of people, and when I look at it, it's amazing because I feel like everybody's worked together to bring it to life, you know. And for me, I just find, you know, it's like Aimee has said about the 2 parts, you know, and I think that really resonates with me because, you know, you have one part you're managing and then the other part, you know, for me, it's actually going down to the retail shop. Like I'm just like, I'm a retailer at heart. So I'm like walking around the shop going, yep, that needs to be, I'm facing off on like different products. And, you know, and I was asked the other day, oh, do you, like, I was just there in the shop and then someone just asked, do you work here? I was like, yep, I do. And I was like, just
Put my badge on.
And I was just like, I felt just so at home to be just showing them, yes, I can show you where this product is, and, you know, chatting to them. And it really brings me to life, you know. So I think I'm similar to, I mean, where I like the managing part, but like you, I find, yes, there are different parts. And I have to say, you know, for me, like the challenge has been really the expansion part because, you know, the generational change, you know, so it's kind of, because of family business, you know, and I'm incredibly grateful for mum and dad to be, you know, to have set it up, you know, but there is that challenge of moving it on to a more modern business and, you know, bringing that along and you know, so for me, I think, yeah, I really enjoy all the different parts of the business, you know.
And Emma, if you're being a property developer one moment and a builder suppliers another moment, what's the juggle there? Because it sounds like that everyone seems to be plate spinning.
Yeah, and at the moment we're setting up a storage business at the moment as well, and we're in legals with 2 other companies too. So there's always stuff going on, but very similar to what the ladies are saying. It goes back to what you enjoy and what your values are. And I think that's really important, Lorna, what you said. Like I used to work for Salesforce, and the moment I arrived, the day I arrived, I knew that company was totally with the values that I adhere for, but also as well, empowerment is similar to what you say, that you're going away, that you want your team, that when you step away, i.e. that your focus is on something else, that you can leave your team, that you're empowering them to run the business when you're not there. And I think that's really important, that sometimes you aren't in the business because it gives other people the opportunity to be able to grow as well.
Yeah. I actually always remember someone saying to me, and it really like stuck with me, you know, when something hits you like hard in the face, and it was so simple. And I was like, oh God, like I think I'm going to take a holiday now, but like I feel really bad. Like I've got all this going on. And someone actually said, the team need you to take a holiday because they need a holiday from you.
Oh, that's a really good point.
And I was just like, oh God, okay, I'll pack my bags. Yeah, you're right. But it's true because actually, you know, they kind of like, they went a bit deeper and they're like, what you're signaling by 1, not taking holiday, or 2, always being on the holidays, that you don't trust or empower them to do the work.
Absolutely.
They know you well enough that if something's on fire, they'll come to you. So you have to give them that grace to step back.
Breege, when you were travelling all the time, would you have the huge guilt about what was going on back at the desk? Or were you able to just bring your whole self to whichever new territory you were going to?
I think I had, or at least I know I had great backup.
Yeah.
And I really believe very strongly in team working and empowering people and allowing them. You know, there was no, in Primark, we didn't make mistakes. They were learnings. And I think that was really important, and allow people to have those learnings and encourage them. And you'd be just amazed in terms of what a person can do if they're trusted and if they believe that they're doing the right thing and if you appreciate what they're doing.
Are women good leaders?
I think generally, I think women are very good leaders. They very good, particularly good, I think, on the soft skills. You know, women who show courage in their voices, you know, I think it's real. Women who have fire in their mind, but also grace in their heart. And you know, when a woman walks in that door, does she have strength in her steps? So really, I think that women are generally good leaders, and they will have the support of women, with the support of men, where they will be trusted, provided that there's give and take and understanding that they are different. But also, I could say that if women makes tough decisions, they may be seen as aggressive. If women are collaborative, they may be seen as weak. So that's something we have to be aware of.
And do we need to self-audit, do you think? Do we need to think back about our day and how we maybe presented ourselves?
I think that's a really good practice. And it's just like, you know, your weekly meeting with your team, whether it's standing up around a table, whether it's having a cup of coffee, reflect what's happened last week, what were the good things, what do we learn from, what are we going to do next week? I think that's really important in any area of life, whether it's in your personal life or in your professional life.
It's interesting to hear you say it is about the presentation and about the outside.
Absolutely.
And what we're showing to the world.
And the confidence, and you know, that, and I think now, of course, with all that's happened with women, and with all the legal protection and the opportunities for education and the development of career paths, I think women can be and are much more confident. And they play a wide role in the world. And I know in Penny's Primark, the majority, or high proportion of our management in leadership would be women. Also very good men, of course, as well. Yeah.
Lorna, any input from you on the sort of the recruitment side about how the world is viewing women as leaders?
Yeah, I think like the world, particularly from a business perspective, continues to see that the contribution from women, you know, it's not just about the gender profile and gender representation. I mean, we do represent 50% of the population, so it's not, you know, unexpected for us to represent in a very equal way in all facets of society, not just business, but politics and, you know, every other kind of aspect of society. But I think the business conversation around women in business is about ultimately the contribution to the bottom line. And I think women representing, as I mentioned, half the population, you know, allow for much better decision making and much better diversity of thought. Like, you know, it drives me mad, and I'm sure all of us have been in many situations where we've been the only woman in the room. But like the naivety and the arrogance to convene groups of people that, you know, in a business setting that are all men, like it's just so short-sighted. And, you know, when I see stuff like that happening and people are like, oh, you know, there's no women here for whatever reason. Like, you're just not looking hard enough, you know. And I definitely believe, and the more times I see, you know, strong women in senior leadership roles, that there's momentum behind women at the top. And the more times you see people in those roles, the more tangible it becomes for the generations coming in behind us. Yeah.
I think it's also important to say there are many talented women who do not wish to go into the corporate life for other reasons. And we must also respect that.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. Talking about, as we were just a little bit previously, about maybe the guilt attached to working away from the desk or holidays or whatever else. And also that great term that seems to have flooded the female business world in recent times, imposter syndrome. Does anyone here suffer from imposter syndrome? Do we think it's a thing? Is it a particularly female thing? Is it actually called the human condition with another label on it? Does anyone have any feelings on imposter?
I think when people talk about imposter syndrome, they like to make it a female problem for whatever reason. My problem throughout my career has actually been my age. has been, yeah, it has been too young right the way through. Like, I was so relieved when I turned 40. Okay, I'm going to be taken seriously now. Now I'm 45, going on 46, and I'm a bit like, okay, 50, it'll add another dimension.
What's your skincare secrets?
Sculpted by Aimee, of course.
That's really interesting. So you have been the little girl in the mummy's shoes.
100%.
When my father passed away suddenly when I was 31, and I had to take over his businesses just as the financial crash happened in 2008. And I was Liam May's daughter. And that's all I was looked at through that view. And through NAM and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really difficult because I was dealing with people way older than me. And it was all, calm down, little girl, calm down, little girl. But I loved that, and I said that previously, because people underestimate what I'm like. And that's my superpower. So you can think whatever lens you want to about me, but I know I am a pretty successful female leader, and I see things differently. So
Emma, what built this layer of confidence into you? Was it working in the business, or, you know, through your family?
Yeah, it's probably seeing my mother and my father and the way I suppose they did business, and very similar to what Lorna said, going back to your values. And one big thing for me is how my father treated people. And I suppose after his death, what people said about my father. And that's what I want to, that's what my legacy, I want my legacy to be. I want people that are working for me. We have 170 people in the building providers. And I'd happily have anyone walk into any of our building providers and ask them about me. And I've no doubt it's a positive thing, because I want to be known for that person. I want the side of empathy. Look, I'm not a full non-bullshit person, but if you work hard, we'll all get on. And I think it's very important that you listen to people and that you're a decent human being, because people want to buy off decent people. Aimee, you'd know that.
Yeah.
They do. Like, people like to buy off decent people. And if you don't live your values and who you are, what's the point?
Yeah. Imposter syndrome, Aimee, have you ever felt it?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I think I'm actually really great at like bottling it inside and then showing up and being like, hi, how are you?
Doing the breege.
Yeah, and even though like
Strong
internally
voice.
it might be like this. One of my kind of biggest moments that will like stick out, I think, for the rest of my life is when I was going through the EY Entrepreneur of the Year in 2021. So I was like a good bit younger, the business was younger, and they contacted me to apply for it. And I was like, I mean, what planet are these guys on? How lovely, but like, are you mad? No way. And then the day that the 8 shortlists of the emerging category came out, I remember having the paper and getting like this nauseous feeling in my stomach with my mom, because I was like, I'm so nearly mortified that I'm in this with all these people. And it was just like your mind completely took over. And then subsequently went on to win the category. And I mean, I nearly fell off all these chairs and I just couldn't stop saying, I'm so surprised, I'm so surprised. But it's funny, right? I have a lot of feelings on imposter syndrome. I do think it can be presented as a female problem. I do think from watching a lot of females around me, it is more of a female intuitive feeling at times. I think males are a little bit more able to, not able, they just maybe don't think that they're not the right people all the time, so they don't really have that. But I also think there's like a little bit of a humbling superpower in it, because to your point there where people might underestimate you, like you don't want imposter syndrome to take you down a level where you don't go forward, because we need to be progressive and we need all females propelling forward to show others coming up behind us. But I do think there's a little bit of it's nice to stay grounded, and that feeling can sometimes bring you back down, not have you too high, where you stay focused on what you're doing, you have a quiet confidence on how you're doing it, and you can possibly be underestimated, which actually is a really good superpower around others.
And it probably generates, I don't know about this, not being scientific, but it generates something in the brain that is a little bit like adrenaline, and it keeps you on your toes. And I don't think there's wrong with being a little bit anxious.
I think humility is a wonderful attribute, actually, to your point. And I think that's a really lovely way, actually, of thinking about it. So it kind of, it's not about, helps you ground away from the arrogance and maybe be just a bit more humble in your day-to-day.
My way of dealing with this is saying I'm going to be at least as good as a man, and probably better. But I do think it's really important, you know, to discuss this in teams with both men and women, and to give them confidence and being able to put that out on the table. And confidence is hugely important. And I'd say what helped me in my working life, or all through my life, was the 3 years I spent in Switzerland and Germany, which was very strange, coming from the west of Ireland as I did.
And the goats.
And the goats. At
19 goats.
Yeah, at quite a young age. And you know, in Switzerland, they speak 4 languages. Germany, quite different. The way how they do business, how we do things around here is different. So confidence building can be part of dealing also with the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, really good point.
I also think, you know, it's interesting what you were saying there, Emma, and I think it's so true about people like doing business with nice people. And I think if, as a group of women or a mixed group, if you reach out to people, if you reach out to the person that seems that little bit more nervous or whatever it might be, it's a human nice thing to do, and you know, you get yourself an ally over time.
And it's something I like, especially with the Sunday papers or awards that are coming up all the time, male or female. It's reading an article and actually going and finding the contact details and just sending them a quick note, because when you do have that imposter syndrome, to kind of, when you're reading something and kind of going, oh Jesus, when you get someone just saying, look, that was a great article, or a podcast or whatever, it's just reaching out. I think as females, we do need to get better at that.
Yeah.
I actually will commend Emma for doing it, because you, last year when I very gratefully won the IMAGE Award, Emma was the first person who had very kindly sent flowers after and a congratulations message, knowing probably how much it meant when you won, but also to recognise, I think, the shock or surprise that was on my face that night. And I think that will always stay with me. I remember getting them being like, how lovely in a woman's life who's so busy took the time to go and say, well done. And you're definitely right, it's more what we all should be
Someone
doing.
else did that to me, and I know what that feeling's like. And when I've done articles and stuff that you're really worried about doing, or you wonder what the journalists are going to write about you, and when you actually read it and you're wondering, do you have that imposter syndrome? And suddenly someone sends you on LinkedIn a really nice message going, actually, I can relate with everything you've said. It kind of makes you settle as well. But I do think it's
And it doesn't kind of matter what level you are. Like a little note of encouragement actually can be so powerful, can't it?
And we're also quick to write to complain.
Yeah.
But we're slow to write. Life goes on and things pass, and it's maybe a really nice female trait to have that awareness to acknowledge.
What I think is really lovely, certainly my experience with women, is if I ever, to your point, Emma, read an article or come across somebody, you know, send them a little note on LinkedIn and ask to meet for a coffee. And like, people are so good when you just, you know, one-on-one chance for a quick coffee.
That's
you know?
female supporting female.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel as well from winning the Businesswoman Award with kind of leaning into the dyslexia, the amount of messages that I got of parents, of young teenagers going, wow, look at you. That was a massive thing for me as well. I think leaning into the whole CEO dyslexia.
Well, it was great that you could use your platform for that as well. You know, it's a two-way street. You could sit there and just accept, or you could say, actually, there's something I want to say about this.
Yeah. And one of the best things that's actually come out of the award is I'm now on the board of Dyslexia Ireland as of this month. So that's huge for me, because I can have an influence and again, look at the whole side, especially when 3 of my kids are dyslexic as well. So it just shows.
Cool.
Well, it's interesting, you know, I mean, you're all doing various things side of desk to send the lift back down for the next generation. And it's important. It needs to be prioritised. Would I be right, Breege?
Oh, I absolutely think so, because, you know, role models, we lead by example, we have experience of life, and others really value that. And the guidance that one can offer to be taken or not to be taken, whatever it might, I think can be very meaningful to young people. And really it's about a little what Lorna said too, it's about taking the time, you know, to appreciate that and to understand that there are those, you know, who may need your help and support, perhaps that we didn't have. At the time, at least in my career, it was more difficult at that time for women in business.
Yeah, and I think there's so many ways to mentor. Would I be right, Lorna? You don't necessarily need to be a strategic mentor relationship. You don't need that way. You can be a casual mentor.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say, Melanie, and that's the type of mentorship I love, actually, sitting around, you know, a cup of coffee and then, you know, sharing that time with somebody that you trust, that you can kind of give them a bit of insight into the day-to-day and kind of mutual mentoring almost. Yeah, I prefer that more informal, casual mentorship than kind of the more structured, formal mentorship.
It's the a la carte mentorship,
the a la carte
as you need
mentorship.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Dip in and dip out.
You must get so many emails from young girls, makeup artists, young boys as well, maybe. How do you manage to share out all of your time and expertise, Aimee?
Yeah, do you know what? It's the one thing, if I had more time, I would love to be able to even respond. I find actually, and it's the biggest compliment, we get a huge amount of inbound from people doing their theses or something in college, and so they might have a series of 10 or 12 questions. And like genuinely, probably 1 every 2 days will come in, which is so amazing, and you feel so grateful, and you never want to take it for granted, but it is physically impossible to respond or be available to all of those. I always admire, say, kind of networks that I'm in and people who maybe have offloaded one business and they're on to their next investment, whatever it might be, or maybe they retired and they have a little bit more, I'm not sure if you ever have free time, but a bit more disposable time. I can't wait to get to that stage where I can kind of give back entirely, because I've been so lucky with mentors along.
When you were on your way in the early days of product development and starting the business, who were you looking up to?
Honestly, I think I still have that. I think you have it at different stages of the business, but at the beginning, it was really people who had launched a product into a store, and maybe like I was learning about customs and freight for the first time. So you do a bit of like ringing up the freight company. Hi, my name's Sandra. I'm calling from X business, or, you know, but like you said, you have a coffee with someone and you learn like 6 months of information in that 30 minutes, because they're so giving and they're basically telling you, here's a series of things that went wrong for me, so avoid these pitfalls. And so you do. But I would be very lucky. I think I have a phone book of people that I am very lucky that I can WhatsApp and say, can we have a coffee? Can we have a call? And each stage of business you go through, the risks get bigger, the challenges get different. So you're actually just asking different topics and so you find the answers.
You're still mentoring a load of people, aren't you?
I think mentorship and lifelong learning is hugely important. I've been involved in Going for Growth for many years and still do. It would be unusual for me not to have 1 or 2 mentorships every week, which I enjoy immensely. But I also have a mentor, and I think that's really important. And he's a 28-year-old young male. And so now I will not be behind the door in AI and what goes with that. So that keeps me up to speed.
But it's so important. We all have different things that we need to learn from, don't we?
For me, I guess it's my mum and my mum and dad. Like my mum is just my husband would say, like, she's this 5 feet, like, powerhouse, you know.
Rocket.
Yeah, but like she's just so amazing and incredibly charismatic, and you know, she just knows everything about the business. So, because I guess for me, when I moved to Hong Kong, it's difficult because I was starting afresh, you know, and I found, you know, yes, I could have joined my family business at that time, and my mum and dad would have been great mentors to me, but I wanted to kind of get out and experience the world. So, yes, it's a tougher road because no one was showing me the ropes at all, because everybody wanted to keep the information themselves, because, you know, they're afraid that if they show you, you might get ahead, you know. So it was tough, I think, at the start. And but, you know, I think you just learn, you know. So I was out there learning and finding my own path. And then I think when I came back to the family business, I was like, gosh, I should have just learned from my mom and dad, you know. But I suppose all those learnings have made me to be who I am now. So I'm kind of grateful for it all, you know.
And Melanie, for me, I'd say that every day is still a school day. And when I talk to young people, I often, you know, quote George Bernard Shaw when he said, I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. The harder I work, the longer I live. I've got hold of this flaming torch at the moment, and I want it to shine as brightly as possible before I pass it on to new generation.
Oh, that's fantastic. That really does sum it up.
So that's a
beautifully.
message to try and give these young people, and we discuss that and what it means and what's the experience of that, and that helps.
But that needs to be brought into the schools. And like I'm involved with one of my sons with Dragon's Den, and entrepreneurship needs to be in the schools, I would feel, because I think kids at a very early age can get exposure to people like us, and for their brains to start kind of bubbling on what possibly they could be, because the next entrepreneurs are 14, 15 and 16, females and males, and the only way to really attract them into the businesses is by introducing it into schools.
Yeah.
I'm visiting a school in Kilcullen on Monday morning, you know, and it's an award ceremony for the year, so that I find.
And what do they want to hear from you, Breege? What do the next generation
Well,
want to hear?
I tell you when they've asked me the questions.
We'll have to do a part
The
two.
next roundtable, yeah.
Yeah. How did you learn entrepreneurship, Aimee? What started you? Was it literally going from one to the next one?
Yeah, I don't know if you have a moment where you learn it somewhere. At least in my case, when I'm forced to think back, you know, I have and still do a really hardworking mom, and it was a single parent household. So subconsciously, I watched her graft for my entire life. So I, you know, would have been at childminders from a young age, would have seen, you know, her tears when she was going off on work trips, but it was a needs must because she had to finance the family. And so when I got to 15 or 16, you know, like a lot of people in the previous recession, mom was hit quite badly with it. So there was also a needs must to go get a part-time job. The best thing I ever did, because I started young, it in turn grew my confidence, my independence. And so I think from that work experience, I just kind of educated myself in the topic that I was interested in, which was beauty, studied business, and then merged the two together. But it's funny, when I do think back, like I was the kid who was like making lemonade in the front garden and trying to sell it off. Or even when I was doing makeup before, like at 18 years of age, I was actually buying in eyeshadow palettes and putting a margin on top and selling it on. Not like wheeler dealer, but like trying to think about how you could monetize. Or even when I worked on counter, I always remember on a Saturday, and my manager was probably just like, will you just pipe down and just work, you know, like as in we're all just trying to put in the shift here. And I'd be like, I think we need to create client files and have them back and then do parties, and we can do events, and we can spend maybe just €30 to get refreshments in, and then we can get this return. And she was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Bet she's sorry she didn't listen now.
So yeah, I think it's in you. I think that drive, that will, that determination, whether it is to financially have independence, whether it is, for me, it's definitely a purpose-driven ambition. So like to succeed or to feel your own kind of, I would have quite high expectations on myself. I'm sure we all do around the table.
Well, I think it's fair. I think you've answered my next question, which for everyone, does success leave clues? Can we see somebody who's going to be a complete star?
Certainly I've come across people in my career that you know just has that kind of intangibility.
What traits do they have?
Well, from my experience, it's been people who have been quite articulate, who are lead with clarity, you know, quite clear in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Very results oriented. So, if they make a commitment to do something, they follow through on it. It's not somebody that needs to be chased. And then a really strong interpersonal skills, like in this world where the role of the human is going to become much more focused, because the stuff maybe that humans previously did, which were low value, repetitive, etc., will be taken out by AI and emerging technologies, etc. The human interface now is going to be much more refined and much more value add and much more polished. So in that world, the human centricity, I suppose, of business, I think, will centre around people who can be really good humans and
Invest
engage,
in that.
and invest really well in terms of interpersonal skills. So those kind of attributes have been things for me that I've seen in people who have been hugely successful.
And what do you think, Breege?
I think curiosity is a major one. Curiosity, being a good listener, I think, as well. Having commitment and having dedication. And also those who care about people and are kind. Those also, in the broader sense, that care about being good neighbours, and those who care about the environment. And I've had a number of experience where you can probably spot that talent early on, where some or all of those traits, including what Lorna has said, are present.
Yeah. I'd like to add passion to it. I think having passion for a business, something that you really enjoy, I think is also a trait, because they're hardworking, they'll do anything, like they enjoy it. So, to them it's not really work. So then, they're able to give a lot more.
It's a raison d'être more than a job. As a serial entrepreneur, Emma, do projects leave clues if they're going to be successful?
Yes, but kind of going back to your other question, I think with the whole imposter syndrome, they're the people that have imposter syndrome are the people that are bold and take risks as well, which is funny because we're the ones that suffer from it. But definitely A players is a big thing. And I think very similar to what Aimee said there, I saw what my parents did and what they had to give up to get where they got to. And I think very, very similar to what you said is I worked from a very early age. I think 16 was when I worked in my local pub. And I think that gives you some kind of grow.
Yeah.
But you do see people like A players on your team. You'd see them and you'd know them pretty quick. And it's people that are team players, they're aligned to your values, which I said, and are bold. But also as well, when you step back and take that holiday or that time away, they're the people that step up and to the plate and are able to take on the responsibilities as well. And they stand out, don't they?
Yeah, totally.
Aimee, you have a lovely full story about your store on Grafton Street, don't you?
Yeah. So the first counter that I worked part-time for as a 16-year-old was Urban Decay. And the store that we took over, that is now our Grafton Street flagship, in September 2022, was previously occupied by Urban Decay. And it was the 10-year anniversary from when I finished on Mac Grafton Street as a 19-year-old when we opened it. So there was like 2 moments of like where we started and who we took the store from, and one of the best investments or bold moves we've made as a business in our short journey to date.
And you said that, people had opinions on that, thought that perhaps it wasn't the right decision.
I was ready to be locked away.
Yeah.
They were like, it's still COVID, you're crazy. And I remember January 5th, whatever day we came back, the start of that year. So like, COVID 2021, this is January 22, High Street still wasn't, people were still a little bit cautious. And I announced to the team, I'm going to start looking for units on Grafton Street. And everyone's like, well, I may leave now because she is not right.
But it's an iconic street. Like, it's not like you just opened a shop somewhere. It was like Grafton.
And I had such an inherent feeling of like, for our point of elevation, what's next? This is it. Like, what are we doing that others aren't? And I think, when you mentioned there, the signs of success in others or how we're approaching things, very much wrapped up into what you both had said around passion and curiosity. Going that extra mile, you can see it, you can feel it, you expect it from your A players, but they do it regardless. Like, that is such a sign to me that this person is going above and beyond and should be rewarded and benefit for that and protected at all costs, because ultimately that's what you want.
You went above and beyond and you put a huge big pink bow on it.
I did. Pink bow signifies Christmas. It's great.
Can I ask you all, we are living in a very volatile, crazy world at the moment. How does that translate to business? Is it very hard to do projections? What's it like? What's the environment like?
It's tough because, you're at the front line, costs are high and, you're trying to kind of balance it. I think it's really a balancing act because, you're trying to see how much you can put up the prices and that you don't lose the customer. You're trying to just find out, how to navigate it all. But I find that, there's also opportunities that, you can find for growth. So I think that's a really plus sign. There's always room for growth, I think, in all arenas. Situations.
And should we be staying in our lane or should we be pushing out of it? Has anyone got any thoughts?
Chase the growth.
Right.
Wars don't breed sound and good market sentiment. Like, they just don't. There's no good news in the world right now, sadly. And that influences people's hiring decisions, their investment plans. Candidates are a bit more nervous about making a leap in terms of going from company to company. Companies are trying to stretch their resources. They don't want to be spending money, etc. So we've found, and it's part of the CPL model, we've diversified so much over 35 years of operation. So we're in every sector, we're in every service. And our big play, I suppose, is in Ireland. So what we always try to do is live within the core, but look to see what are the adjacent offerings. So we're always chasing pockets of new business or new growth that doesn't stray too far from the mothership, but it's enough of a stretch that it's a market that perhaps we're under-indexed in, but we can leverage off the skills that we have and the relationships that we have with clients, etc., and then we go after it. So
It's a logical progression.
you got to chase the growth, I think, in times when you're under pressure.
And what about our entrepreneurs?
I never stay in my lane. I look at all them. Talk to my team. They're always giving out to me.
I can't read which my lane is.
Have a lane.
I think certainty is very important. You know, if you're in business, you need to know where you're going, because if you don't, any road will take you. So to ensure that you're able to plan. We see what's happening in the US at the moment and the consequences. We see the UK economy is going through a very difficult period, changing of economics, and that's also quite difficult in terms of investment or lack of investment. And in Ireland, if we think of the shortage of housing and the problem that that is creating, and it is uncertain, and are businesses able to hire international people? They are, but they may have no place to live. So there again, that kind of uncertainty will, in certain circumstances, keep people from investing in the long term.
How do you manage all your projections, Aimee? Because with different territories growing and shrinking in different ways, that's a full-time job in itself.
It is. I think we're at a very kind of lucky stage where we are just all growth. So we're very much going from startup to scale up. Scale up, I think, essentially means that we're just looking at the additional geographies, like you said, and kind of where that growth comes from. So I think provided we can continue it, it's really exciting, because the world is kind of for the taking in terms of global ambitions. I think in terms of staying in your own lane, that intense curiosity needs to stay, so that you are finding the opportunities, and ultimately tough times breeds creativity, I think, because you have to double down, and actually with that comes some really great thinking, although it's a harder macro environment. But when we are trying to grow a legacy brand, there's a fine line between us jumping into every lane and being really focused on what our core is, and particularly at our stage of business, because we still have many, many years hopefully to go. So yeah, I think we're on that legacy build route, but a lot of geographies to come. In terms of the right time to enter those geographies, not that we don't consider the more macro environment, but actually a lot of the time it's down to our own capital and where the investment is best spent and where focuses need to stay. So yeah, we're kind of just head down.
And how much content you can create in one day, isn't that
Exactly.
one of your big bugbears?
That's our big KPI metric.
And if you go back a little bit, Dr. Whittaker and Prime Minister Lemass didn't stay in the lane. You know, they had enormous vision in very difficult times. And Ireland would not be where it is today, and in terms of the level of investment, without these two having tremendous foresight, tremendous courage, tremendous and confidence in what was going ahead. And they made very bold decisions. And we should look back on that and be very grateful for what's happening.
Yeah. And whether they had imposter syndrome or not, we will never know, because
will never
they
know.
just got on with it.
Absolutely. In the most difficult times, if you think what was happening in Ireland. And today we have a modern economy that's flourishing in the world. The Irish people are hugely appreciated. They're well educated. They have major opportunities, not just in Ireland, but internationally. So we can be very proud of what happened in the 50s and the 60s.
And hopefully we will continue pushing forward. Can I ask you all, how is AI going to affect everyone's businesses? Has anyone any thoughts on this? 5 years' time? What
I would say first, Melanie, is, and I do say this to other people, it is hugely important all businesses of all sizes examine AI. have learnings, have workshops, and understand where it's relevant for their business, and see how it will impact, and not be left behind. It's relevant to every business, but maybe in different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, equally, don't be chasing rabbit holes, you know, and there's so much, it's like a race to be the first to talk about AI. It's, you know, some of the commentary that I'm seeing around AI, it feels almost like companies are, the authenticity behind their messaging isn't quite there, you know, that a lot of it is kind of fake it till you make it type thing. But I think the companies that will succeed are the companies that acknowledge AI is here and it's here to stay. You've got to embrace this new technology. You've got to be really clear and focused in terms of what the use cases are, and you've got to be brave in terms of how you deploy it. And lastly, you've got to educate your workforce. AI isn't something that you trick around with at home, you know, in your spare time. You've got to put a structured learning around it, so you're democratizing the use of AI from the inside out.
I think as well, if you're trying to take a bit of the fear out of AI, because let's be honest, a lot of workforces will have that because they'll feel it's a threat to humans in the organisation. A way that we've tried to frame it, and listen, we've a lot to do on AI, but in terms of us just embracing it and kind of getting going with it so we're not left behind, like Breege said, is thinking about it as a tool to improve efficiency of your team. So it's not a AI comes in and so you guys go, it's a you work together so AI can actually enhance how you are doing your work, the speed of work, the efficiency of work, the quality of data and reporting, and actually bringing it back to basics. Because I think I spent a week in Harvard this year and a lot of it revolved around AI. And it was so overwhelming to the point that we were like, Jesus, we're going to be run by robots in 2 years' time. This is terrifying. So you can overthink everything, particularly in the world of AI to that extent. But I think if you actually just bring it back to basics and focus on what areas can it support right now in the business, and maybe what areas are the next phase that you enter into, and you take it in building blocks.
And what you're trying to do is move the humans up the value chain in terms of what the humans are doing. They're doing more value-added activity, and the less value-added activity that the humans would previously have done would be replaced by AI. So you're hoping to, you know, unlock the productivity gain, but also the value add that humans can bring.
Yeah.
Upskill, upskill, upskill.
100%, yeah.
Every day be the student, isn't that what you were saying?
Every day is a school day.
Which actually brings me to my final question, and I've probably just answered it with your answer there, Breege, and that is, how do we all keep our careers evergreen? How do we have the same enthusiasm for going into work in 2 years' time that we did 10 years ago? Because interestingly, each of you have been in your businesses for a considerable amount of time. Nobody's job hopping. So what's the secret sauce? What keeps you there? Who knows the secrets? Who's got
Lifelong learning. And I think I've been very fortunate over the years to attend many international programs at various universities in the US and elsewhere. I think that's one which is hugely important. I think also being aware what's in the media, what's happening in social media. If it's for business, the business magazines, the other magazines, know what's going on in the world, have a good networking, and men are much better. That goes back to the golf club. Men are better than women at this, but this is really happening. And most of all, I'd say, have an appropriate mentor. You know, an appropriate mentor that, for me, I'm learning. I spent a half day yesterday and I was learning a business I chair, which is a data analytics company. I was learning about AI, you know, and I came away feeling like blown away. This has huge implications, and, you know, every business should be part and parcel of. Keeping going, lifelong learning is a secret, definitely. I think,
I'm laughing at your reference to golf, thinking, who has time for golf? Who has time for a round of
4
golf?
hours?
5 hours if you include the obligatory cup of coffee
the
after.
19th hole. Emma?
Keep doing what you love is really important, and have time out for yourself as well, I think, is another very important element anyway to my life, which I probably have learned. And mentorship is huge, and also give back as well. That's one of the things I love about what I do, is being able to help struggling companies and other people try and move up the food chain and stuff like that. So give back, I think, is really important.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think focus on how you are your best self in work, I think, is really important. So if the balance goes really imbalanced, you need to bring that back so you stay enjoying it. And I also think keep that curiosity and feed what gives you joy. So be it the creative side, be it, you know, one thing I love is that every day and every week looks different for me. I know I could never, ever, ever be in a routine of 9 to 5 at a desk solidly like that day in, day out. And I'm so aware of that. So I thrive on the chaos.
Health and wellness is hugely important.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, health and wellness and work-life balance. And in terms of my health and wellness, over the Christmas period, I do a 10-night fast in Europe. And I come back feeling bushy-tailed and bright-eyed, ready for the year ahead.
You're the only person not weighed down by Christmas pudding.
I couldn't think of anything worse.
You have to eat Asian.
No.
What keeps everything evergreen for you?
I think it's having that vision. For me, I always keep looking forward, and that keeps that excitement within me. And I feel that keeps me wanting more. And I just see in my world when I wake up, I'm like, wow, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this. I want so many things I want to do. And I find so many areas I want to grow that I feel that excitement just keeps me going. So I think, having that vision and a long-term vision, that kind of keeps me on the go all the time. And I'm just constantly excited as to the upcoming plans and what is possible, like what is not possible. Everything's achievable as long as you can think of it. So, for me, it's a really positive thing. So staying positive and, having that vision keeps it going.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, ladies, thank you so much. I think the overall takeout from what I'm learning is by, empowering women and by raising women up, we absolutely raise everything up with us. So you've done that today. So thank you very, very kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone who made today's conversation possible, to Sophie Power and the team at IMAGE Media, to everyone at Hedgehog vs. Foxes, our amazing panellists, our partners PwC, and all the sponsors with IMAGE across our business platform.